really fun place. There's sky trailers there. They try to free.
Welcome to Inform. Welcome to this talk this evening. It is wonderful to see everybody here. This is an exciting evening. I want to thank you for coming very much, and I want to thank my team for putting this on, as they make it so incredibly easy. Everybody's involved, and it is our honest pleasure to have you in our home. And I would like to introduce Steve from the West Coast Modern League to introduce our speakers.
Hi everyone, thank you Nancy. My name is Steve Gerrans. I'm an architect and chair of the West Coast Modern League. I just want to start by acknowledging how incredible the crowd is tonight, and thank you all for joining us this evening. This has been one of our most sought after lectures, and it's not just everyone in this room right now. We had nearly another 100 people on the wait list for this evening, despite having opened up another 100 spaces. So thank you all. If you know anyone who wasn't able to make it in tonight, please let them know that we'll have a recording of this lecture available online soon after the event. And if you didn't make it to our On the Boards lecture last April, there was also a recording of that available, and you can find that on our website at westcoastmodern.org. I'd just like to acknowledge that we're gathering today on the unceded traditional ancestral lands of the Coast Salish peoples, the Tsleil-Waututh, the Squamish, and the Musqueam nations, and we are grateful to them for being able to gather with you in this place today. We wouldn't be able to offer these events in the way that we do without Inform Interiors, so we'd like to offer our sincere gratitude to Nancy and Mel Svensson and the whole team here at Inform, not only for your incredible generosity, but for all of the work that you do in helping make these events happen. So thank you so much. As you know, this lecture series is intended to turn focus on our local designers, to those who are caring for the strong history of design that we have here in Vancouver. And it's an opportunity for our community to come together and to share in recent works that are being undertaken right here in our own backyard and to inspire us all, as I'm certain we will be tonight. Tonight we welcome Susan and David Scott. Back in 2012, after 12 years of working at prominent Canadian firms, Susan and David broke out on their own, launching what has become the award-winning architecture and design practice of Scott & Scott Architects. And they started, as so many of us do, in their home, for them in a street-level studio that they renovated out of a former neighborhood grocery shop, and where they continue today. In addition to having built several of their own projects, their studio includes an in-house workshop where they undertake industrial design, prototyping, and material research, work that is foundational to a practice that has been described as, quote, a full investigation of the possibilities of design from building down to the smallest components that make up the environment. Their designs are informed by a deep respect for craft, for local natural materials, and by the process of building, evidenced by their inventive and meticulous detailing, the intimate sensitivity to their surroundings, their conceptual clarity, and the ease with which the materiality of their spaces appears to come together. They have completed and are currently working in varying regions along the West Coast, in the mountains of Colorado and Toronto, in challenging and sensitive geographic situations where environmental factors demand highly considered solutions. Please join me in welcoming Susan and David Scott.
Hello. And thank you to Inform for hosting us here tonight, and thank you for the lovely introduction and for inviting us. The West Coast Modern League does some great work in the community and bringing lectures like this to clearly interested public. We are doing a couple things tonight here that we are not used to doing. Typically, David and I don't like to speak together, but we tried it out in Alaska last year and it went pretty well. So here we are. We also usually take David's old boss, Peter Cardew's advice and don't speak in our own town. I can see now why that is. That was his thought, but we'll see how we go. This is us. Typically, we're skeptical of architects who show 10-year-old images of themselves. But this one is from 23 years ago when we first graduated architecture school. So we felt quite comfortable showing that, and it's a bit more, it shows more about where we come from, and hopefully you'll see how that resonates through our current work. This is us it's in a copper mine outside of Kamloops. When we graduated from architecture school in Dalhousie, we moved back home to the West Coast, and it was a recession, and we realized that having familiar skills, working skills might help us get a job as architects. So we dismantled this building and for David's parents and put it back up again at a lake just outside of Kamloops. It's David's parents' retirement cabin and was finished just about 2 years ago. It uses a lot of local materials, a lot of reused materials, and yeah, it was a lovely place for us to go with our family. After a very cold November, building that in the year 2000, we decided to move down to Vancouver and see if we could actually get jobs as young intern architects. I started working at James Cheng, and David started working at Peter Cardew's office. I then moved to McFarlane Green & Bigger, and after 5 or 6 years of working in these offices on very large projects with a lot of documentation, a lot of binders, a lot of papers, we were eager to get back to that familiar, kind of more exciting way of building without plans, without all the permits, without all the restrictions. So we found a plot of land on, oh, I didn't skip the slide. We found a plot of land on the north end of Vancouver Island and built this cabin for ourselves. At the time, it was $100,000, and that was 15 years ago, I guess. We built it on weekends, holidays, and with a bunch of friends who helped us out. This process introduced us to a lot of the suppliers and resource manufacturers on the north coast of Vancouver Island, which we now are still in contact with today, and use their marble, their wood, and yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah, so that's the view from outside our window. It's on a community-run ski hill north of Campbell River. And within that, we like to build things out of scrap leather that we wrap the handle with, and stock steel and fasteners to make candle-lit candelabra there. There's no power or water or cell phone coverage, which actually allows us to have a holiday from our practice. There we go.
This is our home and our studio. It's a block off of Main Street, and after working for 10 or so years, we realized we really hadn't done a lot of the maintenance that we could have done on this house, which we had bought sort of at the very bottom of the real estate listings in Vancouver at the time as well. So we quit our jobs. We had 2 young daughters who were in childcare. We took them out, and we decided that we would take on renovating the house with girls at home, and what eventually ended up us starting our practice. The studio has a big room in the front, which we work in, and it's all lined with Douglas fir, which was supplied by the same mill that provided us with wood for our cabin. And in the back, there's a workshop which we use for prototyping, making models, doing different material samples. And we do a lot of kind of assembled things where we're buying components and working with other manufacturers and then putting them together. So it's sort of, we do what we can in a small space, and we utilize other people's skills, which we don't have. This was one of our first commissions. It was a A-frame in Whistler. We had started out with a design for it that used CLT, and it was quite a kind of advanced technological project, which when we finally took it to tender, the prices came back extremely high. And to kind of save the project, we redesigned the whole thing and went back to a very simple way of assembling the building with joists and decking in a way that we kind of understood the bare economics of it. The project, it utilized certain joinery that we had developed at the time with our engineer that was a very kind of pragmatic set of decisions around how to screw it together using sort of new fasteners, but in a very simple way. And we used a lot of the local materials from the island and the province that we've been used to using. A lot of what we kind of learned from that first project, we've put into a lot of the work that we're currently doing. This first project of the 4 that we'll show tonight is also our first project in the United States, albeit in Point Roberts, so it is sort of just in the United States. But it, being our first American project, we wanted to work in a very American way with it, using kind of North American standards. And the essay by Tom Peters, American Culture of Construction, which talks a lot about the frame and panelized systems of America as being this pragmatic, easy type of building, which is unencumbered by tradition or kind of intellect as the basis. It became sort of how we wanted to start this project. It was also a site that, unlike a lot of sites that we deal with, it doesn't have a slope, it doesn't have a view, it's sort of a postage stamp at the end of the street. The street is the APA Road, which is named after the Alaska Packers Association, the cannery that was on Point Roberts. And the site was previously cleared, so it was infilled with alder that had grown over the last 20 years. And the site was sort of one where it really responded well to having a very pragmatic, simple home in the middle. The design was based largely around just the standard gang nail truss as the basis of the dimensions and everything within the space. So there's a simple truss bay which is extended from end to end of the house in a 1.5-story loft. And everything is built in a way which is very well suited to sort of a local builder, but also embracing all the very simple techniques, materials that are available. That kind of approach was very useful because it started being built during COVID. So the availability of a lot of kind of materials that we might use otherwise, or things that require shipping or from offshore, that are kind of become a daily part of practice, weren't available, and we weren't using them anyway. So it was actually quite easy to work with the builder. So the trusses, which run along the length of the house, are fully exposed and expressed, and all of the panel sheeting is finished material where it's not, it's sheetrock in America, not drywall. So it's something we've learned. So everything that's either painted sheetrock or plywood. And at the two ends of the houses, there's clear stories which illuminate the spaces, and the natural light filters through the trusses into, on the upper floor, there's 2 little reading desks. This one's for guests, and in the previous photo, there was an area where there's a longer workspace. And the lower floor has sort of simple punched windows out to views. We worked with a supplier in Mexico that made handmade tiles of a kind of standardized dimension for the project. So the kind of notion of an American project was really to us a North American project, with a lot of the wood product from Canada, and these tiles which were in all the washrooms. You can't see it in the photos, but all the extent of the ground floor as well. A lot of the types of materials we use are sort of consistent from project to project. We often work with the stone off of Vancouver Island, West Coast marine A-face for plywood. In this situation, any of the casework was gesso washed so that it was sort of low and tonal difference to the walls, where any of the joinery which you touch on a daily basis was made out of solid wood. In this case, the drawer boxes are sort of made in a standard way that emulates the boxes that like orchards or packing would have. In this case, this is an example of one of the Alaska Packing Association's boxes. The island, or any of the kind of joinery which you're using on a daily basis, is all made out of solid material, such as the drawers as well, with the intention that they can age over time and with use take on a greater level of durability. There's, in all of our projects, we tend to kind of work with a color, and we will mix sort of a custom tint. In this case, it was in sort of ox blood type red, which we could see as synonymous with American kind of design. The outside of the building is clad in Alaskan Douglas fir with sort of a simple galvanized roof. And it was, for us, it was quite exciting to work with things that are very usual North American standards in an expressive way. And when the client took a friend to the house, he came back with the information that they were really excited because it looked very Scandinavian. it was finished. But to us, it was the quintessential American home that we were building. Since, not since that project, but a lot of the projects which we've done utilize kind of prefabricated structural elements. We work with one shop on Vancouver Island quite consistently. This was the Saanich Farmhouse, which we finished about 5 years ago. It was our first chance to work with them. And they've been a great partner with us in kind of developing the wood technique around different types of joinery using the standard lumber, which is kind of the basis of the first project. The second project is a project in Whistler where we utilized the same builder, but we wanted to make the houses to be, we wanted to use kind of a setback rule about the area as it was calculated in ADUs in Whistler to make which is measured to the building, the inside face of the walls, but we wanted the walls to be a usable fixture. So we turned the stud bays that went between the timber bents and made them into shelving units. The third project is one which is underway, the same fabricator, but it's at Mount Hood in Oregon, which has a quite extremely high snow load because of the wet snow that they have. And in that case, the same sort of jointing techniques were used, but we laminated 3 plies of rough sawn wood with an engineered core. And in this case, learning from kind of working with A-frames, we adjusted the pitch of the roof to allow for clerestories mid-bay within the A-frame to allow light to fall deep within the space. So we've kind of have this working relationship which has been shown in these projects, and there's 3 or 4 more projects under construction with them, which is happening, where we're using sort of very kind of crude, raw, dimensional lumber, but also utilizing kind of advanced timber engineering with the types of shear-rated fasteners and different arrays to achieve the structural requirements of the different locations we're working in. And that's something that allows us to do very simple roof structures from time to time, but also it allows for roof structures with a greater degree of complexity.
Yeah, so this is when it got a little bit more complex. This is the roof structure of a house in Deep Cove in North Vancouver. It's on the water, and there's a covenant on the property that limited it to 1 story. So it started out low at the roadside, and then increased in height and volume as it rises towards the ocean. Almost every single one of those trusses is different, and the king post rolls out kind of like a wave towards the ocean as well. The foundation was built, and these trusses were delivered, and thanks to Max, who's here in the audience, they pretty much nailed every single connection. This is a model. We've actually stopped building models since COVID, but we would love to get back into that. But we find they work really well, just for everybody to understand exactly what the intention is with the design. So in this one, the ocean view is key, and the view across Indian Arm is the main focus, and that structure again allows a huge span with the truss to accentuate that view. This is the original site. The owners had lived on property in a little bungalow for several years, and I don't know how many of you have worked on oceanfront sites, but now, because of the rising water level requirements and working with the District of North Vancouver as well as the Port Authority, as well as a geotechnical consultant and a hydrologist, there are some significant requirements to actually building in these locations. Mainly it's a flood level tank, so the house itself is protected from a 100-year sea level rise. And so here we have the wall that is creating this tank. And this particular image on the left is a swimming pool that is within the tank, and also almost at sea level. So in order to make it so the house does not appear as if it's a bunker, we also have floodgates within these walls that if the water rises, it fills into the gate, and the gate contains the water and keeps the house safe. We'll be testing that before the occupancy. Because there's so much concrete, and we wanted to create some visual interest on that surface. And initially, the builder was quite reluctant, so we built this small box and happened to have another concrete pour that we filled it up with, and took it over to him, and he was on board. And now he's unstoppable with it. It's everywhere. It's the image on the left is the fireplace hearth where it's being brought into the house and replicated with the radiating metal fins above. There's the trusses being delivered, and it was a very nerve-wracking day, but it all worked out. And yeah, very. We find it interesting when we see images like this. It appears as if the design was mimicking the mountain top across the way, but that was, well, I think just good luck. Or maybe good design, I don't know. So the structure went up, and there's that rolling king post I mentioned before. And this view is actually, sometimes these views are not attainable once the roof and the rest of the structure is built, but from the front, like the front property line, that glazed end, you can actually see this same view running right through the house. And there's the roof covered because it's in deep cove. And yeah, the outside insulation allows us to expose the decking on the roof as well. There's the view of the rising trusses and the very wide span across the kitchen and living room area. Yeah, and those are the steps down to the hot tub that join to the pool. And yeah, it's amazing, this house, despite the complexity of the trusses. There's a real calmness that you feel when you enter that. And I don't know if it's the owner or the builder or the design, but it just feels comfortable. And that's it from the outside. The concrete's on the bottom, and then on the top right there, that's actually metal panel and slatted panel as well, similar to what's above the fireplace, but they look remarkably similar. That house should be finished in 2020, in this spring. And this is a Ron Tom house. It's in South Vancouver. It's the Works Baker house that was originally built in 1952. And when we went to see it, it was during the heat dome of, I guess that was 2 years ago, 2 summers ago. And it was amazing. It had been lived in by students who really seemed to enjoy the house, but it had definitely fallen into a bit of disrepair. It was leaking, and yeah, it needed a lot of love, I guess. It seemed to be that this was one of Ron Tom's 2 a.m. specials that he did while he was working at Thompson, Berwick and Pratt. And yeah, it definitely had some good features, but yeah, it was well worn. And that's the original building permit site plan on the left from 1952. In 1981, There was a small addition added, so a few more details there. And then here we are in 2022, and yeah, there's a lot more information required. But as you can see from there, it's the north is to your left, so it's a very unusual square lot for the city of Vancouver, and it allows for a very wide side yard, which actually fits a pool really nicely, and the living room, dining room, and kitchen all look out towards that. We also added an accessory building in the back corner that just closed off the space and created a sort of a private courtyard there on the south side. When we first started on this job, David went out to Toronto. The house on the right is actually Peter Cardew's last project for his daughter that we're finishing off with them. It's an 11-foot townhouse, or row house, I guess is the right term for Toronto. And so, well, when he went to stay to have a look at the construction, he stayed at Massey College in Toronto just to be inspired by Ron-Tom, so we get the details right. But it's actually available for architects and others to stay at in downtown Toronto, which was great. I think we also looked back at one of our first projects, which was very, it was an old post and beam house in North Vancouver, and it just required mainly editing. We just took out a lot of material, a lot of finishes, just a lot of stuff. And we find with most of these houses, it's good to have a sort of an anchoring element, something that will be lasting and potentially avoid any future required renovations. So that's where we first started using this Vancouver Island marble, just a massive sink that shouldn't, well, hopefully will stay there forever. So in the Ron-Tom house, as it was being dismantled, we were thinking of an element of permanence, but also wanted to keep the elements that were what we thought important to the initial design. So that's the fireplace there in the living room, the large openings, and this thin horizontal roof profile. That's the initial plan there, sort of an L-shaped plan. The entrance on the bottom. Is this right? Oh yeah, there's the entry. It's the carport and just the L-shaped plan with this side facing south, and then an upper floor here with a master bedroom. And then in 1981, this addition took over the carport, and a new bedroom was built here, and a small powder room on the main floor. And then an additional set of stairs was built for another primary bedroom with a bathroom and a walk-through closet. The stairs here were very, once the second renovation was done, were very convoluted. It functionally worked, but didn't connect well to the rest of the space. So we removed a lot of that second addition as part of this renovation, and opened up the upper floor on that side for a large primary bedroom. So this is the current plan that's under construction. We've also enclosed the garage on this side and pulled the front entry out and created a proper bathroom, useful bathroom with a shower for the city of Vancouver, and some stairs down here for a guest room, and also this straight view out here is out to the lush garden and has access over this way to the pool. When you come in through the house, you turn to the right to the more public living areas, and that's the view out towards the pool and side yard. We straightened out the stairs so that you come up here to the primary bedroom with an open ensuite, and a den and a larger walk-in closet. Those are the two views I mentioned earlier, straight through the front door, looking out through the open tread stairs, and then when you turn right, over top of this anchoring element, which we came up with, and the owner was very supportive, which was great. That one is a concrete couch, and it's very similar to one of the first restaurants we worked on, Torfuku. The table's still standing, so we replicated the detail in this Rontom house. Yeah, there it is being formed. It's got the supports underneath for 28 days, and there it is unveiled. It's unfortunate you can't see it now because it's all got protection all over it. And that's just a main floor plan showing the outline of the pool, and then this accessory building in the back corner. We tied it all together with a brick surface and lapped it around the pool, and then in the spring the landscape will come in, and yeah, so far it's looking great. The tile setter is amazing. It's got them all in straight lines, and it's, there he is. Yeah, and I guess the windows are, and the opening sizes are very similar to the original Rontom design. Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing this one completed.
I think as Susan mentioned, site plans in the city of Vancouver can be a very clarifying document about some of the things that inform what the design is. In this case, this is a house on the Kitsilano diversion, so it's a regular width Vancouver lot, but the front and rear angles are slightly askew because of 12th Avenue becoming 10th Avenue. The house sits kind of completely within its setback with a series of different kind of elements within the zoning of that area which kind of inform its shape. It's a zoning document which requires, it sort of doesn't necessarily require what we did, but the intention is that sort of every floor halves as you go up in height. So you start with a proportion of the area on the ground floor, and then half, and then half again, so 2.5-story house. Because this street is an area where there's going to be a lot of change, there'll probably be a lot of apartments along it. Our client had wanted a house that was sort of a legacy home for their family, that could be a forever house, as they called it. So we wanted to take an approach to it that had a kind of robustness about it, which would allow it to kind of exist as a house with the residents around it, but also as a house within a street which was eventually to be kind of mass buildings along its length. And envisioning this kind of street with larger buildings, we also wanted to kind of create a little cabin which was within a copse of trees. Growing up in the interior, one of the things that's kind of amazed me about Vancouver are these waxy leafed evergreen deciduous trees like rhododendrons and magnolias, which kind of come to life after a dreary, rainy winter and explode with color. So our intention was to kind of create this. It's actually a bit of a podium tower, which I think every architect in Vancouver has to work at some point in their career. So we have made a very small podium tower, but with a little cabin on top of a planted terrace. The little bungalow that was on the site at the start of construction, it wasn't something that we had kind of been intentional about in the initial design, but the opportunity of having this kind of abundance of thin wood of various sizes from the demolition of the house, we saw as kind of an opportunity to use that wood as the formwork for the lower robust terrace. We had asked the concrete formers to kind of use a random array of the wood, and at the end of the project they brought us this block of wood which they'd carved into a dice, and it was the way that they had determined random, which we thought was fantastic. So it lives with the models in our office now. But so different widths of the boards, they would assign a different number from 1 to 6, and then somebody would roll it across the formwork, and then pick the board of that size to go in there. So we really appreciate that this lower portion of the house, it talks about how it was made, but it also kind of quietly references the house that had preceded it on the site. And a few of the projects which we're doing which are renovating kind of mid-century homes, have a lot of split plank fencing, and it's something that we encounter a lot on the Gulf Islands. It's something that we've noticed is a very durable type of a way of working with the cedar, and it's something that we're actually also surprised that there are sort of a few of these small people that are doing this quite often in their farmyards, that they'll go with wedges and mallets and split planks. Mostly for fencing, but in this case, because of the kind of texture of the base and our desire to have the top of the house retreat back behind the plants, we wanted to kind of treat it in a similar way to how you would treat a fence, that it would just fall into the background and be made with a material that had a very high degree of kind of character, but also durability and a description of how it was made. For the lower portion of the house where you can approach and enter the front door, this is a gouged carved fir was used to kind of create a warm and humanized entry. Within the house, the main floor is, I guess on the inside of the concrete portion of the house, the walls are drywall, and they're kind of gallery walls. So this is the east wall of the living room, which is on the north side of the house, where we've got a long kind of gallery going to the back of the house where the family eating area is, and the kitchen. And in that corridor, we've put a long skylight to bring south light in from the living room on the north end of the home. You can sort of see it, it's a bit shadowed in the left or the right image. But there's the central core, which is also in this image, is a kind of wooden box which extends up into the wooden upper 2 stories. But on the main floor, that box houses a cloakroom and a number of shelves for a ceramics collection. So the house is effectively, it seems very small, but it's also 4 stories. So the basement is the media room, the main floor living and dining with a laneway studio. The second floor are the daughters' bedrooms, which are the same, with a study and a family bookcase and washroom, and then the primary bedroom is on the upper floor. The 3 floors with bedrooms all have balconies within the terrace, and the stair, which happens midway through the depth of the house, is quite critical. And then combining all the spaces, but it's also an important place where light is filtered deeper into the north portion of the home. So this is the stair. Everything within the kind of center of the house is made out of fir boards of 2 widths. One corresponds to the stairs. One is a 3-inch board, which is also the same size as the tiles. The handrail is something, along with the handles in the house, something which we've worked in conjunction with the builder. It's sort of a collaborative thing, that there's certain parts of it that we will wet mold the leather and hand dye it and form it into handles or into kind of the wrapping for the handrail, which also conceals a light fixture, which provides light through the home in the evening. This is the bookcase leading into this study on the girls' room, and a detail of the hand-formed handrail. In this house, because there's an intention about it as a legacy home, there's a lot of kind of hand-made things and things which are working with a lot of the same suppliers which we work with sort of over consistently on projects. The kind of long-term working relationships we have with people have allowed us to kind of work in a progressive manner when we're kind of learning from the last version of things to inform the next version. The image on the wooden panel has the handle which we made in the studio, but it's also, all of the cabinetry in the house is made out of full width boards. We didn't really want any glued jointery in it. So these doors are constructed in a reverse shaker kind of format, which is something that we've seen in kind of informal houses in the Gulf Islands. We've often been told that solid wood isn't stable, and that we shouldn't use hinges on cabinets, but in this case, we've done all of those things. This is our last slide. The house is almost ready to be moved into. The planting has happened since the photo of the exterior has taken place. And soon the table saw in the kitchen will be replaced with a table which Inform has been storing for the last 6 months while the project has been finished. So thank you for that, and thank you, everyone.
Any questions? Someone's gonna have a question. No questions? It's so perfect. Okay.
There's one.
Okay. Oh, here. Okay, we're starting. Yay. Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you first for such a great talk, and I've been watching this house go up for a long time and just appreciating all the details. I spent a lot of time on the Gulf Islands and have been kind of wondering where different details of inspiration have come from, and it's cool to see the links back up to that and our own histories in it. But I'm also curious about the planting. That's more where I come from, the planting side of it more, and I'm curious about how your ideas or visions of the planting informed some of the architectural decisions that you made as far as supporting those magnolias on, I think, the plinth and a few of the other kind of, planting visions that you had and how that related to the design of the house itself.
Yeah, I think in some ways there's a lot of plants that I associate with sort of like granny gardens. So like the yards that I really appreciate in the city, where you have very mature floral things that are kind of a little bit off. So the intention was to really work with a lot of there's sort of ubiquitous ways of having gardens in the city and combining them all into this site so that for 2 to 3 weeks in the spring, it just explodes with color, and it goes back to just being a quiet copse of trees. And that's something that I really love about Vancouver, is this sort of explosion and abundance of color that just happens and then it disappears. So that was a big part of it. Working with the landscaper, it was actually quite funny because we would go to place the trees and I would keep saying move it into the middle. And they'd say most architects tell me to move the trees away so you can see the building, and we kept pushing for more and more trees. They all seem too small to me at this point as well, but I do appreciate that time is a big part of a garden's life. So we like the idea of seeing this house change year after year as the evergreen magnolias and rhododendrons start to mature and fill out and take shape, but also as the house retreats into the background, sort of with the intention that architecture is something that you really don't perceive necessarily in this house. It's more about the flowering plants. It's kind of also an approach that we see a lot of houses where you just build a big hedge around it to kind of create privacy, but in this case we wanted a form of privacy which was also an offering to the city, so it had a moment of beauty every year where it just explodes with color.
Any other questions?
I have a question. I'm here.
Okay, I've got, sorry, one here.
Very nice presentation, thank you. Who are the engineers you work with and how do you collaborate with them?
Sure. We work with Wikihurst Neighbor and mainly Dan Wiki there. We've been working with him for a long time, and we find he's very creative when we ask him to do something. Maybe he's slightly reluctant to do initially. Yeah, and he's got a great team of engineers who work with him as well. We do have a couple jobs in Colorado and Toronto, and we're working with different engineers locally there. But yeah, we're open to anyone.
Not really.
Hey, thanks for the presentation. Just wondering, you said you stopped physical modeling. I'm wondering what you replaced that with, and if it's been as successful or if it's just different.
We've officially replaced it with Zoom.
Right.
It's a lot of, I think about half of our work is in the United States as well now. So a lot of our meetings are virtual, and the physical models don't kind of allow for the same. It's also the sort of collaboration that happens with the models in 3D with engineers that are not in the city as well. So I don't think we're full stopped, but for now it's just been over the last few years, it's really been replaced with computer modeling.
So digital 3D kind of walkthroughs, 5Ds, that sort of thing. Okay. Thanks.
That opens up too many possibilities, though. So we would like to get back to the physical models.
Hello.
Hi, thanks for the talk. I'm incredibly inspired by your work, and I'm really curious to hear about your design process, especially as a team, and how you, if you collaborate on projects, if you each have your own, and how you kind of keep, your projects are very diverse, and yet there's a real signature aesthetic to them, and so I'm just curious to hear how you work as a couple.
Yeah, I guess it's constantly changing, but I think initially we work doing some kind of initial scheme, going back and forth, and have a few. I guess even once a client comes, we each on our own create an idea and of what we're thinking, and then eventually it organically merges together. I don't know. I don't think we don't have a plan or a consistent way of doing that. And then with our great team in our office, I think they're all here tonight. There's 6 of them, and we go back and forth, and then with the owners themselves, it's an amazing. I don't always like change, but when we look back at the initial project that we presented and then see what the final is, I find it incredible. And the amount of change that happens during that process, and the amount of, I don't know, tightness or looseness that is just, it seems to take on its own. I'm not sure. If you have a different strategy, I'd like to hear it as well.
Yeah, I think, like, Susan and I we met in school 26 or 7 years ago, and it was a school where there was a lot of making happening. There's a guy named Darcy who's back there who did very beautiful models and was back and forth to Kamloops working on a house for his parents. Todd and Stephanie, who have started Molo, they were in the school, and there was this real kind of relationship between how things were made and almost a kind of pragmatic approach to architecture. And going and building my parents' cabin and getting jobs, we really became site architects quickly in our career. And a lot of our understanding of design was really directly related to construction. So a lot of it was about the refinement that happens and the decisions that happen both unexpectedly or in ways you don't want to happen, but actually kind of bringing those things back in to making the design better through kind of integrating the things that occur on site. And I think over the years we've worked that way, basically. It's a very pragmatic approach where we're kind of thinking about it as construction quickly in the process, and then looking through the process of construction about how to refine it and how to seize opportunities that are present in each one to make each project its own special project.
I'd like to thank you for your adventures in developing materials and detailing. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a great way to end, don't you think? Awesome. Thank you so very much. Thank you, West Coast Modern League. Everybody.
We live a vlog from Maine. Neither of us make dinner. Yeah. Yeah, he was great
Up the quality was ridiculous.
That's been a long
Great.
Project